How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be looking at one block step is killing a revenue and how to find it fast. So businesses grow as connected sequences. One block step holds everything else down the line. Do this as an exercise for yourself. Map all your systems out, find the constraint, fix it, and assign every step to a person or automation. Now, every business is a I can't speak today. Every business is a contingency system. Each step depends on the prior one. And stalls aren't about motivation, they're about a block step. So find it and fix it, and your growth will resume straight away. So these are the three main business systems that there are: marketing, sales, and fulfillment. Marketing creates awareness and generates leads. So the steps in this sequence is you create content, you do outreach, and you do ads, which leads to awareness, which leads to interest, which leads to leads, and then call booked. Then, the rule is the marketing must feed to sales. Now, an example is doing some cold email maths. So 500 to 1,000 emails per day at a 1% reply rate. If you remember yesterday's maths, that's 5 to 10 responses. If 20% of them book, that's 1 to 2 meetings a day. And if 10% of them close at an average of 2,500, that's over 10K a month. Now for sales, the function is it must convert to paying clients. The steps are calls booked to discovery, to pitch objections, to closing, to a contract. Now the rule is the signed clients must unlock the fulfillment. And for the fulfillment, deliver the promised results. Onboard, set up, execute, report, and then retain, and then case study. Now, if your onboarding is trash, that will absolutely tank your client retention. Now, the rule here is the quality drives the retention and the proof. Now, the contingency rule is each step feeds into the next. So the marketing feeds into the sales, which feeds into the fulfillment. Now, inside each of these steps, basically this N+1 thing just means that marketing has to precede it, and it can't go on without it. So for marketing, you have to create content and ads. And obviously the prospect can't become aware of you until that has happened. Then the prospect will then show interest, but that can't happen until the prospect becomes aware. So it's a complete chain reaction. Then the lead can't be generated until the prospect shows interest, and etc., etc. You get the idea. But essentially, I just wanted to put together a step-by-step process for you of what each individual step would look like. And if you want to download this doc, you can just click the link in the description of this video. Now, the rule is you cannot skip steps. You cannot do step 3 before step 2 is complete, and the same for step 4 and 5. If any single step is blocked or too slow, everything downstream stops. So stalling is when one step's throughput is too low for the next. Now these are the types of blockages for each of the 3 individual processes. So for marketing, obviously not enough leads, which is either the result of low volume, a weak offer, or wrong targeting. And the way to fix this is to increase the volume, test niches, and refine your framing. Now an example of this is sending 100 emails a day at a 1% reply rate and getting 1 reply. Obviously not enough to feed sales, and the system requires at least 500 plus. Now for the sales side, if your calls aren't converting, it's either because you have a weak pitch, unclear deliverables, or a pricing mismatch. Now the way to fix this is to improve the deliverables, the discovery, and the pricing. Now if the delivery breaks under load, it's because it relies on manual, owner-dependent processes. And obviously the simple fix here is to document, hire, and automate. For example, if you have 20 new clients that you have to onboard, set up, and report, and all that's manual, that creates a huge bottleneck and you won't be able to scale. Now why both of these systems must run together. When cold outreach runs without operation support, the calendar fills and the conversations start, but the delivery stays manual and is incredibly inefficient. Capacity becomes the ceiling, not acquisition, and more leads equals to more chaos, if you remember from yesterday's video. Whereas if you look at when operations are optimized without client acquisition, the backend is efficient, time is freed up, but it assumes existing volume, and optimizing an empty pipeline is useless because you have no volume to multiply. So how to find your blockage? These are some very simple questions that will help you determine where in the sequence you're getting stuck. So if you're not generating enough leads, obviously the simple fix is you need more volume. If that's not your problem, then closing enough sales calls. Easy fix, pitch, deliverable, and offer. Then if that's fine, then can you fulfill for all those clients? If you can't fulfill for all your clients, that means then you need to hire and automate. And if you can fulfill for all of them, that means you need to go back to the beginning and add more volume because you're not doing enough on the client acquisition side. Now, 2 reasons why businesses fail to scale. Firstly is because they don't have a system. It's just undocumented in the owner's head and is usually on a piece of paper somewhere. And the result is an owner-bound capacity ceiling, which is what we talked about before. And the other reason is no orchestration. Now it's documented, but it's unassigned. For example, outreach and automation workflows exist, but when the owner stops sending/monitoring everything, it stops. Now let's look at the orchestration. Now, when it pertains to a person in terms of labor, it usually goes from sales calls to client relationships to creative judgment to context-heavy steps. Whereas with no orchestration, lead sourcing, email verification, cold sequences, follow-ups, onboarding workflows, etc., etc. Now, the 3-question diagnostic in practice, which is common across cold email agencies. Like we talked about earlier, the marketing blockage is usually because you have a low send volume, you either have a too small of a niche, or you have an unclear offer. Now, obviously, the solution to that is just to get more clarity. For example, if you're sending 100 cold emails a day, you need to 10x that. If you're targeting too small of a niche, where if you go into a polo and you're only getting 1,000 leads in that niche, it's way too small. Well, if you've got an unclear offer and unclear messaging, well, you just got to go back to the drawing board. Now, in terms of the sales blockage, if your calls aren't converting and you've got vague deliverables, you need to clarify the pitch and itemize those deliverables. For example, what are you pitching on the call, and go through your sales process entirely. Then for the fulfillment, if the delivery is taking too long, you need to document, automate repeatables, and hire for human steps. For example, if a firm is offering acquisition, such as cold email or operations in the form of automation that produces leads, but the sales can't articulate the package, well, the easy fix is just to document the deliverable stack and itemize the scope in terms of what's automated versus what's manual. Now for the diagnostic checklist. Use this to audit your entire business right now, and you should be able to tick every single one of these things off. Do you have marketing, sales, fulfillment steps mapped out as sequences? Do you have each step assigned to a person or an automation? Have you identified your current constraining step? Now, to fix that constraining step, have you automated, hired, or removed the owner from the sequence? And have you got clear SOPs defined so the steps can run without the owner's involvement? So what all this means for you. A stall is one block step. It's not a broken business. Map all the steps out, find the constraint, fix it, and assign ownership or automation. Now, this is a really simple step, but most people don't do it because it's a headache to do. But I promise you, if you do that, you will thank me later. Now, this applies to acquisition, fulfillment, or any function. Identify the constraining step, assign it, and remove it and resolve it as quickly as possible. And as soon as you do that, the growth will resume. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any new videos, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.